Hello, I'm Ed. Let me grab your attention for 10 minutes. I'm going to talk about Waterfall method, the topic that I've chose for Technology Management module at Cardiff Met. We're going to look through the background, we're going to look through the steps that create this model, we're going to look through some examples, we're going to look through pros and cons, and then final thoughts. So let's get right into it. Just a quick background. Waterfall is a software development methodology, first mentioned in 1970s by Dr. Winston Royce. It follows the logical steps taken throughout its system development life cycles. However, these days, Agile approach overtakes Waterfall in popularity. To build a project using Waterfall method, it takes 7 steps: feasibility, analysis, design, code, testing, implementation, and handover. Let's quickly run through the steps. Feasibility. You have to understand what your team is capable of, what kind of hardware you have, what kind of infrastructure, and whether you will be able to fully support the project throughout. Analyzing the project as a whole and the requirements is very important. You have to document every single detail so there is no questions later within the project. Design is where the technical bit starts. You have to draw and design the actual software, the completed software, as you imagine it and as you think it will function at the very end. When you do the coding, which is the next phase, you cannot start code without the fully submitted design, fully verified. And as I said, one step's output is another step's input. And that's exactly what I mean. You can't start code without having a fully implemented design. Testing is very important, plays a huge role within the entire project. You have to make sure everything is correct. Since the project is large in scale, you have to make sure that every little detail, every little aspect works as intended. Implementation, one but last step. Now, everything that you've made in design, code, and testing, all those details are bundled up and the final implementation happens. Handover. A lot of companies just hand it over the final project to the customer. However, they don't talk about the maintenance aspect of it, and maintenance usually gets neglected. There's a time period that has been drawn that will be supported after the project. Any other implementations with this project are not viable since the project is being completed. The handover only explains the final system to the customer, draws the final line. Some examples where the waterfall method would be used extensively: military sector, medical sectors, and air transports. No one wants to build an airplane without knowing exactly what they're doing. The iterations as an agile approach doesn't really work in this case. You have to have the full plan, full design before you start implementing. Medical sectors, people's lives are involved. You wouldn't want to tweak the software as and when the bug occurs, because the bug in this case could have a serious ramifications. This is a more modernized waterfall method where the requirements are bundling up feasibility and analysis. The design stays the same, implementation is where the code happens, verification is the testing phase, and then the maintenance is actually handouts with the maintenance included. Pros and cons of the waterfall method. Here you will see that pros will contradict the cons and the cons will contradict the pros. Pros. The scope is clear from the very start of the project, which makes it easier on the developers and the entire management group to know exactly where they're heading. It forces the structured organization, which is a huge benefit. Everyone knows what they're doing, everyone knows what they're responsible for, and it makes it organized, since it needs it. Remember? Output, input. They can't start this phase without fully implementing the previous. Simple planning and control, milestones. You know exactly where you are in the project, you know exactly how much time you got left, and you know exactly what you still need to do to be able to complete the project. And now for the cons. You will see they will contradict with the pros. Stricter deadlines. Because you already know the scope, you know exactly where you're heading, therefore you must know the time. You have to know the time because the other group that will work on the next stage relies on you to have a specific time. No flexibility and non-adaptive. As I said, it forces the structured organization, which eliminates any flexibility or any adaptiveness with the actual changes. Testing is done too late within a project. It's easy to fix some simple mistakes, however, for the huge flaws, you will have to go back into the coding from the very start and rebuild the entire thing. Customer feedback is usually ignored mid-process because any other implementation out of the scope will jeopardize the entire project. It will have to be started from the beginning. And here arrive the final thoughts. Large and strict projects, as aforementioned, medical, military, air transport, just to name a few, would benefit from the waterfall method. But those are only a few examples. However, more agile approaches are preferred over waterfall in over 95% of the projects in industries. Thank you very much for listening. Right, let's have a look at the sample. And fun. Right. Okay. So, background. That's it. Read yourself. It follows the logical steps and it works as a waterfall. The deadlines, because you know exactly. There's no flexibility. There's implementation and handover. That is it, isn't it? It's now very late and I'm going to go home.